When you see Fine Gael ministers being interviewed in the media, they try to make out that the housing crisis is so complicated that they can't possibly solve it. But they've no interest in solving it because so many TDs are landlords. But here's a solution. There's 198,358, almost 200,000 empty properties in this country. If someone leaves a property empty while other people are homeless, we should just take it. There's almost 200,000 empty properties in Ireland. Over in Britain, the vacancy rate is 2.5%, but in Ireland it's 10%. 10% of the housing in this country is empty, while 11,000 people are homeless, 100,000 are on waiting lists, and 70,000 people are in mortgage arrears, many now in hock to vulture funds who bought up their loans. At the moment, what do the government and local councils do if someone leaves a house empty? Well, they put a small little levy on them. 3% a year of market value if you don't develop the house. Now, considering house and land prices are rising faster than that 3% a year, it doesn't matter to some landlord who's got 25 houses or a vulture fund who's got 1,000 to pay a 3% levy to leave land undeveloped. You see, intentional dereliction of land and leaving houses and land sitting there increases the demand and the price of other houses. So tell me why someone who owns 20, 30, 40, 50 houses should be allowed to leave them sit there to increase the value of the house that they want to put on the market, to push up the price of rent, to leave homeless children spending their life for the indefinite future in a B&B or a hub. In France, they slap a 15% tax on an idle house, and after 1 year it goes up to 25%. That's a bit more of a kick or an incentive to make them do something with the house, rent it out or sell it off. But people in Berlin have come up with a more radical solution. They've been protesting in their tens of thousands, demanding that the government nationalise all the properties and flats belonging to vulture funds. The biggest landlord in Berlin, Deutsche Wohnen, owns over 100,000 flats. So there's thousands of people homeless. People can't afford their rents, and the working class people in Berlin are saying, why should anyone have the right to own over 3,000 properties? And anyone who does, those properties should be nationalised. Now, the Derelict Sites Act of 1990 allows local councils in Ireland to CPO or compulsory purchase empty properties. But the problem is, even putting properties on the vacant site list is a big deal in this country because the appeals process means that it's very difficult to secure the compulsory purchase order or even get them on the vacant sites list. And it's interesting, we don't have a comprehensive list of who owns all the 200,000 empty houses in this country. But the appeals against the vacant site levy give you some indication as to who owns all these empty gaffs. The property company Ziggurat, Ballymore, Otomo Capital. In other words, these are wealthy developers and vulture funds. And it's not just the vulture funds who are in on the act. The Irish rich are just as much a part of the problem in this country as anyone else. 72.7% of all the wealth in this country is owned by the top 20%. And the same goes for housing. 6,400 rich Irish people own 156,000 properties. So let me say that again. Just under 6,000 people own 150,000 properties. So there are thousands of people who never ever have a place to live, while somebody else owns dozens of houses. That's 0.004% of the population own 8% of all houses. Now, some people will point out that you can't take over all the empty houses because many of them are ghost estates outside of Dublin. And it's true, the Irish economy has become deformed. The strategy of making Ireland into a tax haven, subordinate to foreign vulture funds, means that everybody is pulled towards Dublin, where most of that corporate tax avoidance and most of those corporate funds end up. So we end up with a country where all our small towns are hollowed out, where people leave and more people are getting squashed into Dublin. But even if many of those derelict houses and empty houses are outside of Dublin, we know for a fact that there's 48,000 empty properties in the cities in Ireland. So let's start with those, find out who owns them, find out what the story is, why they're left empty, and if they've no valid excuse, take the house off them. Yeah, you can give them some monetary compensation, But to be honest, in my mind, I think they should be penalised for leaving some family on the street while they're sitting on an empty property and doing nothing with it. Even in Tory England, the local councils have vacant site officers. People who go round making lists of vacant sites. Here in Ireland, we, the Joe Soap, has to report the vacant site to the local council and then hope that they do something. And then hope that the appeals process by the developer or the vulture fund doesn't stop the council from applying the vacant site levy. So when the people of Berlin get a petition going to take over the properties of vulture funds, when campaigners argue that empty properties should be compulsory purchased or taken over by the state, I say they're right. We need to get the housing movement here in Ireland back on the streets. And at the heart of its demands need to be sensible demands, practical demands, simple demands. That no human being in this country should be without a place to live, while so much of our wealth and housing is owned by the people at the top.